Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. My name is Josh and today is going to be a bit of a special video. So 1.5 years ago, back in July 2021, I made my first YouTube video, and this was just a tour video of my carnivorous plant collection you can see behind me. But my plants have grown a lot since then. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is looking through some footage from that very first YouTube video and then comparing to see how much growth these plants have done in the past 1.5 years. So let's go ahead and look at these beautiful plants. This is, of course, the famous Ventricosa lowii. This is the red form from Christian Klein out of tissue culture that I bought from Red Leaf Exotics, and oh my god, it's one of my favorite hybrids in the tent right now. It has a tough, woody, well, kind of tough body, spectacular peristome. I hear it grows pretty fast. It only put out one leaf with me since I got it. Alrighty guys, so here is that Ventricosa lowii Christian Klein clone. As you can see, it's much bigger now. It has a 2-quart pot. It's just like a food service container, but it has a pretty big main growth, and it now actually has a basil that has started making pictures. But this plant has been doing some weird stuff lately. It's been making quite a diversity of pitcher shapes. You can see this one here, it's died off a little bit, but it was more of a warped peristome. This one has more long peristome. And this one's more like the normal shape that I was expecting, but you can see it's made those 3 types of shapes and from the same plant, so that's pretty crazy. But it's definitely grown quite a bit in that 1.5 years. This is an EP cross, Ventricosa sibuensis burkii cross Jacquelineae. This thing's really nice. This was one of my first imports I ever did through EP, and I cannot be happier. The Jacquelineae parentage is super strong, and before the peristome kind of gets the scalloping, it looks exactly like a pure Jacquelineae. Here's the newest picture on it. So gorgeous, so squat, and a pretty large plant too. They sold this to me as a small. Of course it didn't have as much height on it, but it had about the same leaf span. Next up is that Ventricosa sibuensis burkii Jacquelineae. You can see the vine is all the way up here, and the pot is hanging out right there. So it does have a basil, and it has now started making upper pitchers. Unfortunately, none are currently active on the plant, but I will post a picture on the side there of what an upper pitcher looks like. But it has grown quite a bit since then. Again, it's vining, making upper pitchers, and the basil, or a basil, has just sprouted and made a cute little pitcher. And honestly, back then, those were the best pitchers I've ever made. I don't really care for the uppers at all. I'm definitely more of a lower. I definitely prefer the lower on this cross. But yeah. Next up, we have Alata crossed with Maximal. This is one of my first larger carnivorous plants I've ever bought, and happy to say it is starting to vine, so that's very exciting. And another cool thing I found, a basil is forming. My very first basil on this plant. I've had it for over a year, so very excited about that. Oh yeah, the Alata Maxima. That was one of my favorites for a long time. You can actually see the vine right here. It does not make very many upper pitchers right now for some reason. But the pot's all the way back there, and you can see the vine goes all the way up through this mess and all the way up here. This is actually that little basil that you saw in the beginning. So it's grown quite a bit, several feet in the air. And I did take cuttings of that main growth and have rooted a few. Here's the smallest one of the rooted cuttings that I've done. And then these 2 back here are the biggest one. It actually flowered once. It is a male. But yeah, here are little basil pitchers from the upper cuttings. Yeah, it's crazy to see that that little basil 1.5 years ago has turned into a several foot vine. Next one hanging is the famous Ventricosa. This one I also got. This was actually one of my first ones before the big Alata Maxima. Gorgeous thick peristome, has a large basil on it. Its growth point is, going across, and now it's starting to go up again, so pretty curious to see how this grows out. And I don't have any plans to chop that basil, so we'll see how it grows out. Ventricosa is such an awesome species. Unfortunately, is not really getting that big. At least the pictures aren't. It is starting to get a constricted waist, so it is a mature plant now. It has flowered male for me, but here's the plant. It is just a bush, but as you saw in the beginning there, we're starting to wrap around and go down the pot, and it sure has, but it's now started to go back up and up and up. So you can see that is the main growth there that we were checking out in the first video. But that other growth is back there going up, and then there is actually another one buried in there. So this thing has 3 growth points, many pictures. It's been making uppers for a little while now on the older growth points, and it actually flowered on the main. And it is male. I have done some breeding with it, just one cross so far. I actually bred it with my female Singalana, which we will be taking a look at later in the video. But I did make Singalana Ventricosa with it. So yeah, that is Ventricosa. Still lovely as ever. Moving on here, we have this monster. This is, of course, Singalana. BE 3170. I hear this is a female clone. It's not really growing for me so well. It keeps making these leaves, but no pictures. We'll see if that's just settling into these more intermediate conditions. So, we'll see what happens. So back there I said that it was not really settling into the intermediate conditions, and well, it didn't. It never did. You can see back right here, back is when the growth was at the video. You can see it's starting to get a woody vine now, but soon after that it shot up fast and vined like crazy. Goes up around here and actually stops right up here. So that's a several foot vine, and actually flowered female for me about right here. You can see the old flower stalk. That's where I had the Ventricosa pollen on it. And you can see actually a little growth point coming out of the vine, so that's pretty neat. So yeah, it hates making pictures for me. It rarely does. It made about maybe 1 or 2 upper pictures on this vine so far, but then it just put all the energy back into making the flower. The little lower basil has popped up. And yeah, it's having a hard time making any good pictures, unfortunately. It just wants colder conditions, I believe, so kind of sucks. I won't be making many pictures for me, but I'm going to keep it because it is a female, and Singalana and hybrids is really nice. This one, everybody knows this by the leaf shape, but that's Truncata. This is the Truncata alba. The really all green form. It's making its first picture for me, so that's incredibly exciting. Got it from Red Leaf, of course. So here is the Truncata alba. Back when I recorded that video, I had just got it, and now it has grown a lot in that 1.5 years. You can see it's made quite some big pictures now, and it's growing like crazy. It's like growing right next to this light, and it's just fine. Yeah, I love this guy. It's in a big pot, and it's very happy. Let me take it out so I can turn it around. The newest leaf is growing a picture, just starting to. Beautiful plant. This one is the famous Queen Anthurium. It's looking a little beat up from shipping, but no worries. There's a new leaf on the way. And this is the Queen Anthurium. This was also one at the time of recording that old video that was a new arrival from Red Leaf Exotics, but now it is no longer a tiny seedling. It is quite a big plant that has flowered quite a few times for me. And this is not the largest leaf it's had. I think it's this one that was the largest. So it's quite big, well over a foot, probably closer to 1.5 to 2 feet. But you can see the very thick, chunky vine right there. Looks like a new, I think that's another flower that came up. Like it just stopped flowering again. Honestly, just grow more leaves. Stop with the flowers. But yeah, Warocqueanum for me, super easy grower, super fast. You can see that is, again, no longer a tiny seedling. So, but yeah, it needs to get out of this tent before it overgrows in here, because as you know, Warocks get massive leaves, like 5-6 feet tall. And still, this is a baby, but quite a big difference from a year and a half ago. This is the King Anthurium, of course, Anthurium Vitchii. Swan has been on my wish list for a while, and I'm super happy that I found it at a pretty good price on eBay. And of course, it has that ribbing, even at a small size. Putting up a new leaf, super excited. I got another Vitchii, or at least it was sold as a Vitchii. It's really not looking like a Vitchii on this leaf it came with, but the new leaf, it does look like one. And this is that little Vitchii. I was a little skeptical on the purity of the Vitchii, but it's grown quite a bit, and it's getting large. See, it's in a much bigger pot now. It's still pretty small, but it may need a repot soon. But it's doing well. I absolutely love Vitchii. Here's that other one that was bigger that came in. So the smaller one has definitely overtaken the bigger one, but this one has a few new growth points on it. Love Anthurium Vitchii. And back there we have Glandulifera Vitchii, Spectabilis Vitchii. It's not super stunning right now, so I'm not even going to bother bringing it out. This is the Glandulifera Vitchii, Spectabilis Vitchii. As you saw in the old video, I didn't even bother getting it out because it did not look good at all. But as you can see, it has transformed into a really nice plant. And it just popped a new picture here. I just trimmed off all the older pictures for this video, but really stripy, really spectacular plant, and it's getting some size to it. Yeah, back then I learned that don't just sell small plants because they don't look good. They will transform into something spectacular, and this is just the case for this one here. This is Nepenthes mira. Look at the teeth. It's super squat, super nice. This one isn't as nice as the picture it came with, though, which is unfortunately decayed. But a pretty good size water propagated cutting from Carniculture. So yeah, you just saw the mira 1.5 years ago, and now it is a little bit bigger and has much more beautiful pictures. This one's starting to go off a little bit, but you can see it is squat, it is toothy, and it is just the most perfect and best mira I have ever seen. Oh, it's so nice. And even later that year, just a few months later from that video, it flowered female for me, so just the icing on the cake. It's just all in all the most perfect mira ever. Cannot be happier with it. And even more recently, you can see it has a basil under there, and a little basil picture too. So I was quite happy, and hopefully it does flower again soon, because I would love, oh, I just dropped something, but I would love to breed with it. Sanguinea. Oh yeah, Sanguinea. So it's gotten quite big. You can see it here. It has quite a massive leaf span. If we get it out of behind this Maxima here, you can see it's making some larger pictures now. Quite soft, but still not its full potential. It has quite a few basils that I cut. I did leave one down there. Actually, the basils are now rooted. Those three here are the Sanguinea basils. They've rooted up pretty quickly, actually, but this is just a super happy plant. Love a good Sanguinea, and I cannot wait for it to get some really massive pictures. This is the famous Vitchii M Barrio from Pearl River Exotics. Let's put up its first picture with me. This one's going to be squat and tall. I cannot wait to see it. So as you saw, M was a little beat up at putting on its first picture for me. Since then, it has grown quite a bit. And well, you can see a dead picture here now. A new one is growing, but it's gotten quite big. I'll put a picture on the screen of when this picture was actually fresh and the most colorful. But you can see that it is getting to be a bigger Vitchii, and it is crawling along the ground. Really hoping for basil soon, but this leaf jump is making a picture. You can see how fuzzy it is there. Absolutely love Vitchii. This one here is Loei Vitchii, Boschiana Vitchii, Maximal Vitchii crossed with Mollis Vitchii. Absolutely lovely at a small size, and it's gaining size pretty quickly. So I cannot wait to see how that looks once it's grown up a little more. Loei Vitchii, Boschiana Vitchii, Maxima Vitchii crossed with Mollis Vitchii was one of my all-time favorites back then, and it still is today, but it had stopped making pictures for about 9 months to a year after that video, and now it is quite big, and now just starting to make pictures again. This is an older picture. It is working on one currently, but it is just incredible. I will put another picture on screen of when this picture and a few others were freshly popped, but you can see that it is now in this huge hydrofarm pot. I just repotted it yesterday, and yeah, it's getting to be quite big. This took so much moss. Vitchii, Loei, Rob Cantley, another one from Pearl River Exotics. Absolutely love them over there in New Mexico. Super stripy. Love the leaf shape. Looks like Truncata. This is probably one of the best hybrids BE has ever made, but this is again Vitchii, Loei, Rob Cantley. You saw it was a pretty small size back then, a year and a half ago, but as you can see, it is getting quite big. Amazing pictures. I did leaf jump here, but I accidentally broke off the leaf, so hasn't made a new picture in a little while, and is just starting to make one here off this big leaf jump. You can see how big the leaves are now, and it is just continuing to leaf jump. I cannot wait for this thing to become a huge monster. It definitely has the potential for it. Vitchii Aime, well, Vitchii Candy Cross Aime. This is a Christian Klein cross. And this is the Vitchii Candy Cross with Aime from Christian Klein. As you saw back 1.5 years ago, it was not very spectacular at all, but now it has some really nice pictures. These are all aged pictures. You can actually see it made a double leaf here and made 2 pictures off 1 leaf, so that's pretty neat. I'll post a picture on screen of when these pictures are fresh because they are absolutely spectacular. But yeah, slow grower, but all around a really nice plant that I will be keeping for breeding. Loei Vitchii Boschiana Barbigii cross Loei Vitchii Tivii Platykyla. So super excited to see how that turns out. It should be very colorful with those 2 parents. Still small, of course. I was pretty excited to see this one grow up. This is the Loei Vitchii Boschiana Barbigii cross with Loei Vitchii Tivii Platykyla from Red Leaf. And it's gotten some nice pictures on it. Very interesting, more unique shape. Very slow grower, but it is starting to gain a little bit of size. Here we have Loei Vitchii Boschiana Vitchii Maxima Vitchii, the classic LVB VMV. Looking lovely. Dom sold it to me when I was over visiting, and I am stoked that I have it. That little LVB VMV has grown up quite a bit since then. Unfortunately, no really good active pictures on it. You can see that one was a little bit messed up, but this thing has some insane color and flare on the peristome. and even has a little basil down there. But since that basil has sprouted, it hasn't really made many pictures on the main growth, but it's still exploding with growth. And right over here is a Glandulifera. See all those glands in there, super hairy. And I'm pretty excited to see what it looks like when it pops its picture. And here is that seed-grown Glandulifera from EP. You can see it's quite a bit bigger, making some really nice traps. Very fuzzy, very sticky. And you can see it has a very new basil on it, so that is exciting. Yeah, so it's grown quite a bit. Got a Vitchii from, was Native Exotics, now is Flora. And here is that Vitchii now. Wow, it has gotten a lot bigger since then. You could see that the picture is absolutely gorgeous. No stripes, but I'm really loving this pinker body, bright green peristome, almost yellow. It's so flared, it's so nice. Back 1.5 years ago, it was like maybe 2-3 inches across, but now you can see how big it is. This is the Maleo Basin form, which, if you didn't know, that's the famous climbing form of Vitchii. And, well, I just put it on a little cork around to see if it'll climb up it. So this will be a little experiment. It's really cool to see what happens.